Good evening, Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Newsroom. I'm Faheem Bangash. And now, today, what we're going to be talking about, first of all, is Prime Minister who chaired a meeting of the National Security Committee. A very important meeting, of course. It's the principal decision-making forum on the foreign policy and national security. Not to forget, the senior civilian and military leaders were part of this meeting. Also, decision to convene the meeting of the NSC was taken in a meeting between Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Chief of Army Staff General Asim Munir yesterday. Also, the meeting between the two took place a day after the Corps Commanders' Conference at the General Headquarters. In today's update, 3 soldiers were martyred in a fierce gunfight with terrorists in Kurum Tribal District, which is a very unfortunate incident. 2 terrorists were also killed in the intense fire exchange. These statements are being given by the ISPR. Also, the ISPR says Pakistan Army is determined to eliminate the menace of terrorism, and such sacrifices of our brave soldiers are further strengthening our resolve. This is being stated by the Inter-Services Public Relations. The Corps Commanders resolved to fight against terrorists without any distinction and eliminate this menace as per the aspirations of the people of Pakistan, in a statement which has been given by the ISPR. Also, not to forget, we are watching, there has been an increase as far as the terrorism-related activities in the country is concerned since the past few months. Many of the districts of Balochistan, some of the districts in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa have come under intense fire of the attackers, of the terrorists, even the capital Islamabad. This is going to be our first segment. As far as our second segment is concerned, that's, of course, we know about the cataclysmic floods which took place in the monsoon season of 2022. And obviously, it is going to have its repercussions. And the repercussions is, first of all, the poverty which has been created. Of course, the crops have been damaged, the infrastructure has been damaged, houses have been damaged, people are fighting diseases, people are fighting wars inside themselves, be it their mental illnesses, be it their physical illnesses. It is a very hard time for all those people who have been affected by this climate disaster. That is going to be our second segment. Poverty alleviation from the country, and of course the monsoon disaster which has resulted in that. And at the end of the program, we're going to have a news item, of course, that is related to the death of the mother of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And we're going to give you the details of that as well. And now, formally starting off with our program. Of course, the first segment, as I told you, that's about terrorism, that's about the National Security Committee, which was held today, and our team has prepared a package on that. Let's take a look at that, and then we formally start.
Pakistan has seen a spat of terrorist attacks in recent months, which necessitated collective resolve and comprehensive strategy to combat the scourge of militancy. A meeting of National Security Committee, the principal decision-making forum on foreign policy and national security, was chaired by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The NSC huddle was briefed on the recent terror wave in Pakistan as it reviewed counter-terrorism preparedness. The Prime Minister reiterated government's resolve to continue to move forward against terrorism with a firm resolve and steadfastness. 2 terrorists were killed in exchange of fire with security forces in Kurum district. Over the past few months, the law and order situation in the country deteriorated, with terrorist groups like outlawed Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the militant Islamic State group, and Gul Bahadur group executing terror attacks. Insurgents in Balochistan have also stepped up their violent activities and formalized a nexus with a TTP. Interim Afghan government has to either restrain the militants from attacking Pakistan or evict them from Afghan soil. Pakistan security forces are determined to eliminate the menace of terrorism, and heroic sacrifices of brave soldiers have further strengthened resolve of nation. The efforts of security forces as well as the whole nation will continue till elimination of terrorism from country.
That was our package, which was prepared by our team. Now, to talk about this, we have on Skype Lieutenant General retired Raza Khan, who's also a defense analyst. So welcome to BTV World.
Thank you.
Now, sir, of course, we have been watching these incidents of terrorism in the country since the past few months. It is rising again, the terrorism activities in Pakistan now. Banned and outlawed groups like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, like the Islamic State group, the Gul Bahadur group, and also the Balochistan Liberation Army. They're all basically stepping up their violent activities. How prepared are we to basically counter the scourge of terrorism?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think Pakistan is in the process of revising, its own multi-pronged strategy, which comprises the political strategy, economic strategy, diplomatic, foreign, and obviously, the security strategy. And when I talk of the strategies at the higher level, they would essentially include the economic, political, and other incentives to the Tariq-e-Taliban Afghanistan and also to the interim government of Afghanistan, because most of these terrorists that you talked about, they still have their bases in Afghanistan, although the government of Afghanistan has very recently denied that. So at that level, I think this is an ongoing sort of a process, and I think the government will have a relook at that. Now, below that, we come to the national security policy, and if you recall, that was formulated by the previous government, and which had directions, for the National Action Plan and the National Action Plan. I'm talking of the revised National Action Plan. It actually flowed out of that. And there was an expectation that there will be provincial action plans with emphasis on the provincial counter-terrorism departments, capacity building, and also their training. Unfortunately, this part, is a weak area, and it is the weakest link in this chain. While the National Action Plan has been revised, and there will be, I think, now some changes in that. We'll have to see because, as you pointed out, the National Security Committee met today. This was the first phase, and I think
Right,
they
right.
will meet again on the 2nd of January, and they will decide about how to tackle this menace. But coming back, to your question, the preparation has to be now at all these levels that I talked about, and we even have to prepare the civil society of Pakistan further, to help and assist the security forces in facing and eliminating this menace. The NACTA is there, of course. It is responsible for inter-provincial coordination. So far, I think that coordination has been lacking for a number of reasons, and one of them is the lack of, political stability at the provincial level and even at the federal level. So when you talk of preparation, the political stability will also have to be taken into cognizance, and the political ownership of all actions has to be taken. And I would actually emphasize not only the political ownership, but I think there has to be political consensus on such an important issue which involves the security of Pakistanis, the security of the people of Pakistan, and the security of the national interests of Pakistan.
You very rightly said that everybody has to be well coordinated, everybody has to be united, because this is something that's in the interest of everyone. And you very rightly pointed out that the political instability also has a role to play here. So now, do you think that, obviously, we have seen that the economic situation of Pakistan is such that Pakistan is in dire need of funds. Then we have seen the cataclysmic floods in the monsoon season. Pakistan is facing a whole lot of challenges there. And don't you think that it's about time that, because on every TV channel that we're watching political instability. We're watching a series of people giving statements, be it the opposition, be it the PDM, they're giving out statements basically against each other. And it is high time to basically unite and coordinate with one another for the greater good of the people. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. I think on the issue of economy and on security, the people of Pakistan want the political leadership to unite and
Absolutely.
respond to the challenges, in a cooperative manner, and I hope they will do that. But coming back, to the specific issue of counter-terrorism, I made a mention of the provincial counterterrorism departments. And in the past, you have seen that one or two provinces, they probably thought that counterterrorism is beyond them and that they are responsible only for maintaining the law and order. I think this is not correct because it has very clearly been laid in the national security policy as well as in the national action plan that the provinces are required, to raise, equip, and train a separate counter-terrorism department and a force other than the police force to help and assist in countering terrorism within the provinces. Now, the money for that again is an issue, but let me tell you, that after the 18th Amendment and after the 7th NFC awards, more than 65% of the revenues of Pakistan, they go to the provinces, and the remaining are with the federation. So therefore, I think the provinces are very well equipped financially to look after, their counter-terrorism department and the forces. And while, they can expect help and assistance from the federations in terms of, provision of intelligence and security at the borders. I think whatever happens in the cities should essentially be looked out after by the provinces.
Right, and definitely the provinces have more autonomy after the 18th Amendment. You're right on that. But one thing that comes to mind as far as all these terror incidents are concerned, are we back to square one? Because a whole generation grew up while we kept on listening to the war on terror in Pakistan, because we kept on watching operations with one name, then the other name, and definitely, are we now looking forward, and is there any full-blown operation planned as far as the anti-terrorism activities are concerned?
You see, the situation when Afghanistan was occupied by NATO ISAF forces, and then after they left, they're totally different situations. And then, our attention was divided, and our security forces and our focus again was also divided, and India was also taking advantage of that. That situation is luckily no more there.
Right.
And I think the organized terrorism in Pakistan is not there. These are some of the remnants, which are part of the TPP, the BLA, and the helpers, the supporters, and financiers, some of whom are clearly from India. The security forces and the government has tackled them earlier, and they are quite capable of tackling them again as well. Of course, they keep coming in the media, and therefore these sporadic incidents, when put together, it creates a picture as if we are back to square one. But I think that is not the case,
Right.
and I think we will be able to overcome this menace very soon.
Also, Raza Khan Sahib, you were just mentioning Afghanistan, and it's just not the attacks. These are not just within the country. We've also had incidents of cross-border firing as well. Now, why do you think the Taliban regime is not honoring the international commitments regarding militancy and use of Afghan soil by the terrorists? I'm not even going to the part where there is a problem with the ban on women education and everything. Of course, that's deviating from the topic. But as far as the militancy and use of Afghan soil is concerned, why do you think the Afghan government is not doing that and paying heed to that?
Okay, I think this is a very pertinent and a very serious question, and I would actually urge the government of Pakistan to ask this question, to pose this question to the Afghan leaders of their interim government at the highest level. And that highest level should include, the level of their supreme leader, Mr. Habatullah Akhundzada.
Right.
I don't think we have, at some level, even contacted him. We need to actually point this out to their Prime Minister, Mr. Hassan Akhund. I think, of course, this has been tackled at the level of the Foreign Ministry, but I think it needs to be, again, the question needs to be raised with their Ministry of Defense, also with their Ministry of Interior, with their Ministry of Border Affairs, and so on. And I think you saw that, I think last month, our Minister of State for Foreign Affairs visited Pakistan, and similarly in the past, I think our Foreign Minister of the previous government had also visited Afghanistan.
Right.
But I think we need to invite their leadership, as I mentioned, at the highest level to come and visit us also, so that they can understand how the people of Pakistan feel about what is happening in Afghanistan, and why are they not honoring the promises which they made not only to Pakistan but to all the regional countries, that Afghanistan will not be used for terrorism against any country.
Also, Raza Khan Sahib, as far as the Financial Action Task Force is concerned, Pakistan just got out of the grey list. Do you think, as a spillover effect, do you think we can go back to where we were, perhaps? Because obviously India has a lot of influence, and India does exercise its influence whenever and wherever it can.
You see, that is right, and I will take you back to the statement given by the U.S. State Department that it is ready to assist Pakistan in counter-terrorism. That is a very significant statement, and in that, I think we should be looking forward to the U.S. helping and assisting us to prevent India at the FATF level, and to prevail upon India, not to undertake any kind of terrorist activities inside Pakistan, particularly in Balochistan against the CPEC, because CPEC is extremely important, not only the economy, but also the security of Pakistan. It is there that I think the US can help assist us, and I think we have communicated that now to them at a number of levels, and hope that will also positively affect the situation in Pakistan.
Right, Raza Khan Sahib, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time as far as this discussion is concerned. That was Lieutenant General Retired Raza Khan, Defence Analyst, talking to PTV World. And now we're going to move on to our second segment, for which, again, our team has prepared a package. Let's take a look at that. Assalamu alaikum.
Months after unprecedented floods ravaged Pakistan, vast swaths of cropland and villages remain underwater, and millions of people are still exposed to floodwaters or living close to flooded areas. Many families are still living in makeshift tents alongside road or near the rubble of their home. right next to contaminated and stagnant water. According to UNICEF, nearly 10 million girls and boys remain in need of immediate life-saving support. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed, while many public health facilities, water systems, and schools have been destroyed or damaged. The World Bank estimates in its latest macro-poverty outlook for Pakistan report that national poverty rate in Pakistan could increase by 2.5 to 4 percentage points as a direct consequence of the floods, with adverse human development effects in disaster-affected areas. Thus, between 6 and 9 million Pakistanis are said to be dragged into poverty as a result of monsoon flooding linked to climate change. Pakistan is responsible for less than 1% of global greenhouse gases, but severe weather events are becoming more frequent as a result of man-made emissions. Islamabad has called for richer and more industrialized nations with larger carbon footprints to contribute to the aid effort as a form of climate justice.
And welcome to our second segment of the program. For that, we have in the studio with us Dr. Rashid Bajwa, CEO NRSP. So welcome to PTV World.
Thank you very much.
Now, sir, poverty is increasing in Pakistan. And of course, we must not forget what happened in the summers in the monsoon season of Pakistan, where according to the World Bank, and I quote, in the latest macro poverty outlook for Pakistan, which says that national poverty rate could increase by 2.5 to 4 percentage points as a direct consequence of the floods. Sir, in your opinion, if you could shed some light on the adverse human development effects in these flood-affected areas.
Thank you very much. Most certainly, the data and the number you're saying are absolutely correct. Perhaps they are a little less than what the actual position is.
Right.
And one of the reasons is that when natural calamities occur, it is the bottom quintile, the lowest, the poorest of the poor who are the worst hit. And it's in these floods also it was the case that the bottom poor communities, particularly living in rural areas, they were the most hurt. They are already, they don't have any kind of equity, their resources are limited, and then you have this kind of a thing. Even today as we speak, there are areas where stagnant water is still there.
Yes.
So, so yes, it is a catastrophic situation, if I may call it.
And also, you know, the size and duration, I mean, many of the households have been washed away, as we've seen, and the intensity of the flood was so. Now, what should be the strategy of the government, basically, to figure out which are the most affected communities, the most affected people, because naturally some are more affected than the others. So what do you think that should be like?
So they're already, excuse me.
No problems.
They've already been surveys done, and very extensive surveys. And as a result, we have found out, excuse me, we found out that so the Sindh government and the Punjab government, and also the KP government, they've done surveys. The numbers and the areas have been demarcated, which is, I think, a great achievement from the government side, both all the provincial governments as well as the federal government. And now it's time to act. And this is where I think the biggest problem would be. At the moment, as we speak, there is a huge need of housing and shelter. I know, for example, that the World Bank is planning to have a major program in Sindh to develop housing units for these flood-affected people. The problem is that, you know, when poor people, they make, you know, mud houses and they're right on the ground. So they're not raised. And the water is about 2 feet to 3 feet. So for example, if there were some planning where the houses were, when they're going to be rebuilt, should be like 4 feet and above, so that at least if there is water in the future, it is not affecting the houses themselves. As soon as the house is affected, just imagine what happens. Sources of drinking water, they get eliminated. Their animals, which is their basic asset, gets eliminated. And there is little or no education. So whatever little education was being done, you know, now they can't send their children to school as well. So we're not talking about quality education or whatever, even just access to schooling. and particularly primary school, they get affected. So to me, I think, as they say, build back better. That's the thing which needs to be done. And I'm very glad that, that at least the government is actually seriously thinking about doing this build back better. It's the same as it happened when the earthquake happened, that when ERA started, when they made sure that there was some conformity to the way houses were built so that they became earthquake resistant. Here I think they need to do flood resistant. But that's also only one part of the solution. The other part is that making sure that the houses are not made on natural waterways. You know what happened is, as population grows and if there is no flood for the next 3 years or 4 years hopefully, then people tend to encroach upon the waterways, the natural waterways.
That's true.
So, and that's the biggest problem which has happened in Sindh also, that there's been encroachment. The other very important area is that you know, there are these outfall drains, the right and the left bank outfall drain, where Sindh, as you know, is low-lying area, so the outfall drains were meant to pull the water out and take it to the sea. Those drains, they need to be repaired and maintained. That didn't happen. So if there is a breach in the drain, then the flood water is there, and the drain water also comes in a natural. So you add, you know, fire to the misery.
Absolutely, absolutely, you're right, and that's quite a dangerous situation,
It is
which has happened there already. Now, sir, I would like to ask about the liaison between the NRSP and the government. How strong is the coordination between the two? Because obviously, like you mentioned, there needs to be rebuilding there, not just rehabilitation, but rebuilding as well. And how implementable do you think the SOPs are, which you just mentioned?
The good thing is that they are involving NRSP and the likes of our NRSP. Just to clarify that NRSP was set up with a grant funding from the government of Pakistan, federal government. Similar programs have been launched in provinces also. So there are provincial RSPs also. And since the grant was given, so 2 or 3 secretaries of core ministries sit on the board of directors. Although all the rural support programs are non-profit, we are Section 42 company. So we are a kind of a quasi-government entity. But the most important thing is that we have what we call our core work is social mobilization, which means organizing communities at the grassroots. Essentially, what it means is that we somehow have a hand on the pulse of the poor people in the remote communities across the country. And so they are using us. We are already in very advanced talks to them that they will involve us. We are not going to build them, but we are going to make sure that the right person is identified and then making sure that the quality of construction is there so that it actually translates into something which the government and the donors.
So basically, you're going to monitor the whole situation there.
Monitor and help, because we are a rural support program. We'll support these communities, making sure that they build back better.
Lovely. Now, also, we know that part of the agenda item this time in the COP27 summit was damage and loss. This was for the first time that this clause was included there as an agenda item. How implementable do you think that is? Because as far as Pakistan is concerned, that's responsible for less than 1% of the carbon footprint. So naturally, and one of the most vulnerable countries in the world, as we know that. I think this statement has become quite a cliche, but still worth mentioning definitely time and again, because this needs to be known by each and every one. So basically, how implementable? That's what comes to mind of an ordinary person, because when it was mentioned that damage and loss has been included in the agenda item, it has been discussed. So naturally, it was a positive development. People were talking about it. So in your opinion, can you shed some light on that?
No, most certainly, it's been a very important development at the highest policy level. Earlier on, we were talking about it, that, you know, poor countries, very little carbon emissions, maximum impact on us. And, you know, so the developing and the developed world, always kind of this debate happening that, you know, we only contributed this much, but we have got all the bad, you know, system
Impact and the repercussions,
into the-
yes.
But, you know, so at the policy level, that's a great thing which has happened. Now, how does it translate into action? That's more important. One is that this fund, I think the Minister of Climate Change, she was there and she managed to get this actually, and in fact, kind of a principal agreement that this fund should be made. But then, you know, making a fund is one thing. Already the world has what they call a global climate fund, GCF, where multi-donor supports, billions of dollars are placed. NRSP, for example, is one of the accredited entities of the GCF, so we work with the GCF. Now, but the point is that how do you unlock this funding for developing countries? In order to do that, you need to do a lot of things in terms of you need to have data with you, you need to have credible, you know, networks which can actually translate what you want to say at the grassroots level. And for that, I think organizations like NRSP can really help the government of Pakistan as well as the provincial governments to provide that support which they need.
So a lot of homework needs to be done in that
A lot of homework needs to be done, and the other very important thing is that, you know, so there are two parts of it. One is mitigation, climate, and the other is adaptation. So you mitigate and you adapt. Mitigate, as I told you that, you know, you clean your waterways, you clean your drains, this, that,
Of
the
course.
other, but you also do the adaptation. One of the very interesting thing which is happening and which I would like to share with your audience is that for the first time now the developed countries are thinking about carbon swaps. What they say is that we will continue the way we live. We will keep on emitting carbon in the air. But we will pay developing countries to do both mitigation and adaptation programs which even further reduces the carbon emissions by them. So a net effect would be a reduction in carbon emissions. So for example, multinational organizations are thinking about it. That perhaps would be a source of very additional, a very big revenue source for developing countries, including Pakistan.
Because as far as I remember, the Foreign Minister, Baloch Zardari, he mentioned and quoted about $30 billion as far as the rebuilding and rehabilitation work is concerned. It has to be more than that. Of course, this is just an initial figure that was given by the Foreign Minister. Do you think that they would be ready to pay such a huge amount? Because naturally Pakistan already has a lot of economic challenges. People are already suffering from poverty because of continued inflation, and these challenges need to be overcome. And without the support and help of such first world countries, I think it's going to become very difficult.
Well, all I can say is that it's going to be a very daunting task. It's not going to be easy.
It is going to be a daunting task.
Unlocking money, international money, is not easy. I mean, there are requirements and there are systems which needs to be put in place. So I don't think so that it might happen in the medium term, but in the short term, I think the government, provincial governments, and particularly I think I must acknowledge the multilaterals, particularly World Bank and Asian Development Bank. They have come forward and they are now planning, I mean, for example, in Sindh, they're thinking about constructing 600,000 houses.
Right.
So, but obviously they will not use the traditional method of PC1s and then contractor and everything else. They want to do this direct financing to the affected people, so that the cost of construction is actually minimized.
Minimized, yes.
But the quality is improved. So this is how it will work.
Also, sir, according to UNICEF figures, and I quote, 27,000 schools have been washed away. Now, is there any framework to resume the education in the disaster-hit areas?
That's the most concerning part for me as well, and I mentioned it earlier on as well, that we need to do it ASAP. Reviving of the school network, that is very important. It's very important because obviously, you know, we are at a very high population growth rate trajectory, and there are youngsters which are coming into the stream, and they need to be put into the schools. And to me, I think the biggest challenge would be that how do we put these schools back into order. The good thing is that those buildings are partially damaged. They're not completely damaged because schools were always brick and mortar. They were not mud houses like the. So with little support and with little effort, I think they can be brought back into use. And I mean, these schools actually, when these floods happened, they became shelters also.
That's true. That's true.
So
even at the time of the earthquake.
Even
yes.
at the time of, so I think building them, let me call it retrofitting them, fixing them, but you can't do it with a broad brush. You need to go to every school and determine which wall, which roof has been damaged, which toilet has been damaged, and just put in that amount of money to fix it. I think NRSP and other rural support programs can certainly do that. Because we don't do it ourselves, by the way. We make sure that the people, communities with whom we work, because we organize communities, there are about 8 million households which we have organized across the country. And these 8 million households are absolutely ready. They can manage responsibly this kind of retrofitting and reconstruction effort of the public goods which are available, particularly education. And also, by the way, BHUs, the basic health unit, the dispensaries also. So they can be done, those can be done with a little effort and little money. But obviously it can't be done through a standard, a PC1 and a project proposal and then going to a contractor. Because unfortunately this become a taboo word also, contractor. So rather than going that way, you do a direct financing to these communities. These communities are, by the way, organized. They are organized at the neighborhood level, a community organization. And then in a village level, they come together at a village organization, and then at a union council, they have a local support organization. So just imagine that if you engage, or the government engages with the local support organization or the village organization, provide them funding to do this work, it would be done more responsibly, quickly, and very high quality work.
That's very true and very important point that you raised here. Also, sir, we know that, I mean, millions of areas of acres of land that has been destroyed, agriculture has been destroyed, their produce has been destroyed, even the livestock, like you mentioned earlier. Are we looking forward to a famine-like situation, food insecurity? And if so, how are we planning on tackling with that issue?
It's a threat. And it's a credible threat. And I think Pakistan, obviously the government is planning to look at that how much food we would need. Unfortunately, the bread basket of the world, there's a war going on in Ukraine, and so you can't even, now wheat is also going to be a commodity which is rare now, at least for this season. But nevertheless, and the other thing is that these lands, where flood water came and went, there was a lot of sludge on it. So as a result, sludge is productive. It is enriched soil, but it's not flattened, so it become undulation. So now a lot of funding money has to be invested to flatten it so that they can grow the next crop. That's the biggest headache for people and communities who are affected.
Yes.
That how do you manage that? Because it needs a lot of energy, you need tractors and you need blades to flatten the land, and then you do. But there's an opportunity also. The opportunity is that rather than just flattening land, you now invest and do a laser leveling. So now suddenly the water requirement earlier on, pre-floods, is reduced by about 30%. So you can actually look at it that the opportunities around this catastrophe and see what are the kind of things one can do in order to, as I said, build back better.
That's amazing piece of information that you just shared with us. Also, sir, water is something that's become very precious in today's world, in today's era. And such high amounts of water mixed with the sanitation tubes naturally has had detrimental effects as far as the waterborne diseases are concerned. How do you think should they be treated? Because according to reports, nearly 1,500 public health facilities have been destroyed. So as far as medications are concerned, as far as cleanliness is concerned, naturally being the CEO of the NRSP, you must be having some SOPs or some standardized procedures in mind.
So it's very interesting. This time when the floodwaters came, particularly in Sindh, because you know Sindh has brackish water, underground water is undrinkable. It's got the TDS, the total dissolved salts are high. So and there was water around. So as they say, the proverb, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. So we went to the government agency, PCRWR, the Pakistan Council of Water Research Resources, and the chairman and I actually together we were able to design a very low cost water filtration plant to even filter the flood waters. So, so what we have done is that we are now producing these in multiples. They're hand operated.
I see.
And it has ultrafiltration tubes which allow not even, don't allow even a virus to pass through. So the PCRWR and NRSP together, we have found out a solution to these problems. And now since the flood waters are receding, so we are using the same filters and we are putting that into the existing water resources where they were, whether it was you know, the drinking water supplies by the public health engineering or the local government departments, and using the source and putting in this filter and then giving almost bottle quality water to the people.
That's brilliant, sir. It's such a pity. I would definitely like to have more conversation with you regarding this, but we're really short of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid Bajwa. This was viewers, Dr. Rashid Bajwa, CEO NRSP, talking to us and giving us a lot of information, because this is valuable information that I'm sure many of us do not even have any idea about. Now, moving on to our third segment, of course, as we know that the mother of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has passed away at the age of 99. Her name was Hiraben, and she died at the age of 99. Modi and his brothers, they performed the last rites and the last rituals of their mother in Gandhinagar, which is the capital city in the state of Gujarat. Also talking to Twitter, the Indian Premier paid tribute to his mother and he honored her glorious long life. Also, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, he offered his condolences to his Indian counterpart, and also he mentioned that there is no greater loss than losing one's mother. My condolences to Prime Minister on the passing away of his mother. This was the tweet by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on the demise of the mother of Indian Premier Narendra Modi. Well, viewers, this was our third segment, Just News Item. Of course, a sad news for all the Indians, for people of our neighbouring country, and of course for the Prime Minister of our neighbouring country. Thank you very much for joining us. That's all the time that we have right now. Inshallah, we'll see you in the next programme of Newsroom. Stay tuned to PTV World.